In the sterile quiet of a hospital, Davis Mitchell finds himself oddly detached. His wife, Julia, has just died in a car accident, yet he feels nothing. No tears, no overwhelming grief, just a strange, hollow numbness. He walks down the corridor, his expensive suit immaculate, a stark contrast to the blood-stained room he just left. His attention fixates on a vending machine. He was hungry. He inserts his coins, makes his selection, but the candy gets stuck. He approaches the front desk, his voice steady. He explains his candy is stuck, but the nurse simply replies, "Sometimes." Davis asks if they have a key, but the machine doesn't belong to the hospital. It belongs to a vending company. Defeated, he returns to the machine, staring at the trapped chocolate. Back at his pristine, empty home, the silence is broken by the answering machine. It is Julia's voice, a cheerful message about a package. A ghost in the machine, a remnant of a life that ended just hours ago. At the funeral, Davis stands among the mourners, a stoic figure in a sea of tears. He watches Julia's parents weep, their sorrow raw and palpable. Later, at the wake, he retreats to the bathroom, not to cry, but to check his phone. This small act of disconnection speaks volumes about his state of mind. That night, he sits at his desk, the stuck candy still on his mind. He begins to write a letter to the Champion Vending Company. It starts as a formal complaint about vending machine, number 714. He details how he put 5 quarters in, pushed B2 for peanut M famous, and regrettably, received nothing. He found this upsetting, he writes, as he was very hungry. Then, he adds a detail that transforms the letter entirely. Earlier, he clarifies it wasn't their fault, explaining the car accident, and his remarkable lack of injuries. He insists he is not trying to be dramatic, just thorough. He decides to start from the beginning. The letter becomes a confession, a stream of consciousness about his life. He talks about his morning routine, his commute on the 7:15 train. He mentions a man named John, to whom he lied about his job, claiming he sold mattresses. The lie popped into his head, and he has avoided John ever since, unable to stand his hot coffee breath. He writes about his job at an investment firm, a position he got through nepotism. His father-in-law, Phil, a founding partner, had been grooming him, a word he hates. He describes the firm's work, handling billions of dollars, buying and selling companies. But none of it feels real to him. It is all just numbers, computer codes transferred through the air. He recalls meeting Julia at a party. A friend said she thought he was hot, so he returned the compliment. They had sex 3 hours later. Phil never liked him much, especially after Davis puked on the ice sculpture at their engagement party. He reflects on Julia. She was a good person who worked with special needs children and snorted when she laughed. But beyond these surface details, he admits he didn't really know who she was. She always said he didn't pay attention. He signs the letter, Mitchell. The next day, Davis returns to work, moving through his routine like an automaton. His assistant, Amy, is surprised to see him, offering condolences. Davis, however, is all business, asking for revenue numbers, and pushing a lunch meeting. In a meeting, he is confrontational, berating his team for their lack of progress. Phil pulls him aside, insisting they get a drink. At a fancy bar, Phil tries to connect with him, speaking of a father's love and the nameless grief of losing a child. He praises Davis for keeping his emotions in check, calling it strong. But Davis is elsewhere. He suddenly realizes why the drinks are so expensive. You are paying for the atmosphere. Phil then brings up Julia's insurance policy. He wants to use the money to start a scholarship foundation in her name. He calls it a legacy. Davis just stares back, his expression unreadable. Davis writes another letter. He reports new developments. A strange cappuccino machine he didn't order has arrived. His father is inexplicably fertilizing his lawn, warning of impending gypsy moths that will destroy the trees. And on the train, he finally comes clean to John about his real job. To his surprise, John confesses his own secret. He was fired from his dream job, and now works a dead-end security gig. In this moment of shared honesty, Davis blurts out, "Wife." He admits he feels no sadness, no pain, nothing. John asks what he does feel. Unable to answer, overwhelmed by this burst of honesty, Davis pulls the emergency brake, stopping the train. He later tells the transit police it felt like a legitimate emergency. His parents, concerned by his behavior, leave for Tampa. He stays at the airport, watching people with their luggage. A new curiosity awakens in him. He wants to know what is in their bags, what they can't live without. He wants to hold the National Guard guy's gun and protect his country. He is starting to notice things he never saw before. Everything has become a metaphor. This new awareness leads him to the dripping kitchen refrigerator, the leak Julia had complained about. Remembering Phil's advice that to fix something, you have to take it apart, he grabs his tools. He doesn't just fix it, he demolishes it, piece by piece, searching for what is important. That night, at 2 a.m., his phone rings. It is Karen Moreno from the vending company's customer service department. She has been reading his letters. She says they made her cry. She asks if he has anyone to talk to. The call is unprofessional, but it is a lifeline. This begins a series of late-night phone calls, a strange intimacy, forming between two strangers. Intrigued, Davis tries to find her, asking for a diner. He describes her based on their conversations, blonde, hazel eyes, but not Hispanic like her name suggests. She eventually calls him while he is at that same diner, admitting she is in the parking lot. He sees her, a shadowy figure in a Corolla, smoking what she calls cannabis. He likes the image of her eating pancakes inside, and decides to leave the mystery intact, but she urges him to stay. Davis's behavior at work becomes more erratic. In a meeting, he asks his colleagues if they consider the song sad. He starts dismantling things in the office, from a loose stall door in the bathroom to his own computer. He feels a powerful urge to take things apart to see how they work, even eyeing his father-in-law's antique clock. Phil, furious and concerned, places him on a leave of absence. Freed from his corporate chains, Davis accidentally drives towards a demolition site. It feels like fate. He sees a crew tearing down a house and asks to help. The foreman is suspicious, so Davis offers to pay them to let him work. He gives the foreman all the cash in his wallet. They hand him a sledgehammer, and he attacks the walls with a ferocious energy, a raw physical release. He later shows up at Karen's house, disheveled and high, wearing a strange assortment of army surplus gear. He tells her he hates his perfect, shiny house. They share a moment of connection, but she insists they can't sleep together. They fall asleep in separate beds, an arrangement he calls apart. The next morning, he meets her son, Chris, a foul-mouthed, rebellious teenager, who immediately asks if Davis is sleeping with his mom. Davis calmly critiques Chris's overuse of the Ford, telling him it loses its value and makes him sound stupid. A strange bond begins to form between the two outcasts. Davis starts spending more time at the demolition site. He even helps Karen and Chris take apart a dilapidated carousel at an old amusement pier. One afternoon, Chris finds Davis in the woods. He has been suspended from school for a graphic presentation about a military incident. Later, at dinner, Karen scolds Chris, but her anger is misdirected. The tension between mother and son is thick. She snaps, calling him a shit, and then immediately apologizes, her frustration boiling over. Chris and Davis find a mutual release in destruction, gleefully smashing things at the demolition site. The foreman is injured when a nail goes through his boot, an event Davis watches with a strange sense of calm. Their friendship deepens. They build a fort in Karen's living room, and Davis recalls his childhood desire to be the fastest runner. In the woods, Chris brings a gun. They decide to test Davis's bulletproof vest, which he bought at the surplus store. Chris shoots him. The impact is jarring, a hurt. Then, as a surprise, Chris shoots him again. Davis, bruised but exhilarated, calls Chris a kid, and Chris retorts, adult. Phil's attempts to control Davis fail. He sends a private investigator to follow him, a man in a station wagon. Davis, now almost manic, walks into Phil's office during the scholarship interviews, a nail still sticking out of his boot. He tells Phil the whole foundation doesn't feel right. Phil gives him an ultimatum, sign the papers or he is done. In a hardware store, Chris hesitantly asks Davis if he thinks he is gay. After a comically clumsy line of questioning, Davis advises him to pretend he likes girls for a few years, and then move to the city. Fueled by this new energy, Davis and Chris decide to completely demolish Davis's house. He even buys a bulldozer on eBay. They smash, tear, and destroy everything. It is a chaotic, joyful, and complete unraveling. Amidst the wreckage of his marriage, Davis finds a piece of paper. It is an ultrasound. The discovery sends him spiraling. He attends the Scholarship Foundation party, a changed man. He confronts Phil's wife, Margot. She finally tells him the truth. Julia was pregnant last year, but the baby wasn't his. She was having an affair, and Margot took her for the procedure. She wishes Julia had kept it. The truth shatters Davis's numbness. He stumbles out, the world blurring around him. He learns that Chris has been beaten up by homophobic bullies. At the hospital, Karen is distraught, blaming herself. Davis tries to comfort her. The final piece of the puzzle falls into place when he meets Michael, the driver of the other car. As Michael apologizes profusely, Davis realizes this isn't Julia's secret lover. This is just another broken person. In that moment, something inside him finally breaks. He cries, real gut-wrenching sobs of grief and release. Davis meets with Phil. He tells him there was love between him and Julia, but he didn't take care of it. He wants to do something else for her, something real. He wants to restore the old carousel on the pier. Weeks later, the carousel is gleaming, full of life. Karen and a recovering Chris are there. Phil and Margot arrive, and Phil gives Davis a small, approving nod. Chris gives Davis a letter. A gift. A group of kids are about to race on the pier. Davis looks at them, a smile spreading across his face. He takes off, running with them, a free man.